This is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda, called Flood Me with Thy Omnipresent Love, again in honor of Valentine's Day. O fountain of love, flood the lowlands of our love for home and family with Thy omnipresent love. Almighty source of all our Almighty source of all our rivers of desire, teach us not to cut ourselves off from Thee, hunting on dry sands of self-satisfaction. Love is our soul's birthright. We demand now that all the rivers of our cravings be redirected through valleys of humility, eager self-sacrifice, and concern for others, until, reinforced by Thy torrential blessings, they merge in the ocean of all fulfillment in Thee. Bless us that the rivulets of our sympathy, affection, and love lose not themselves in the sands of dreary selfishness. Let the little, lonely, separately moving streamlets of our love, which come from Thee, merge at last in the vastness of Thy perfect love. And this is from Rays of the One Light, which is parallel commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. This week's topic is the law. The law is perfected in love. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. John in the Bible, we read, "The law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ." Grace means the power to rise spiritually. Truth means the experience of divine realities, not the application in the outer world of that inner experience. Divine love is the soul's experience of oneness with God. Kindness is the human manifestation of that love. Grace is deeper than mere kindness. Wisdom is a divine experience. Justice to all is a human law, though divinely inspired. It follows as consequence of the experience of wisdom. Truth goes deeper than mere justice. While following the law, we should strive always to trace it back to its origins in the vision of God. Therefore, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita urges the devotee not to be satisfied with spiritual precepts alone, but to go beyond them to the direct inner experience of truth. In the 18th chapter of that great scripture, he says, "Nay, but once more take my last word, my utmost meaning have. Precious thou art to me, right well beloved. Listen, I tell thee for thy comfort this. Give me thy heart. Adore me, serve me, cling in faith and love and reverence to me. So shalt thou come to me, I promise true, for thou art sweet to me. And let go those rites and writ duties, fly to me alone. Make me thy single refuge. I will free thy soul from all its sins. Be of good cheer." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. This statement alone, the law is perfected in love, is such a helpful guideline for our lives. Certainly, when we first get onto the spiritual path, and then as we go on and continue on the spiritual path, I am reminded of times when, even as a child, for example, I was asked to do something. My parents asked me to do something that I felt would hurt the feelings of a friend of mine. It's a long story, and basically they told me not to spend time with him, and from their point of view, they were right, actually. But I didn't have it in me to say to him, I'm not going to see you today, and I couldn't come up with any other excuse that was more delicate and more sensitive to his feelings, I mean. And so I saw him anyway. And later, when they found out, they were mad and said, we had said that you were not to see him. And I said I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I wasn't going to do it. To me, it seemed more important not to hurt his feelings than to just do what you said, just categorically. In other words, I didn't agree that their rule was more important, and following their rule was more important than the outcome of following that rule. I don't know that this qualifies for what my behavior, but there is a statement that when a higher dharma conflicts with a lower dharma, let me phrase it correctly. When a lower dharma conflicts with a higher dharma, then this lower dharma ceases to be a dharma. When a lower law conflicts with a higher law, then that law is superseded. It's overruled. And so this is interesting because, for example, when we first get onto the spiritual path, we may find ourselves, on the one hand, relieved. Because finally, at least again, this is the experience of some devotees, it was certainly mine, that everywhere I looked, people were crying out for materialism, for success, for do what the world says, yes, 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 you can be spiritual later in life. Or, you can have spirituality as your hobby. Maybe, some people assemble toy or model boats, and some people drink alcohol, and you can, be spiritual if you want. But make sure you do all these other things first that will comprise 23 and a half hours of your day. And so I was frustrated by that, and I didn't have this sense of inner strength fully. I had enough inner strength to not give up. I had enough inner strength to go forward anyway and to do what I felt was right. But still, it bothered me to be at odds with people. I didn't argue with people. I mostly just kept quiet. But still, it bothered me, partly because I had to put up so much energy just to maintain my own aura, you could say, the integrity of my own magnetic field, just to hold at bay these criticisms sometimes, these ridicules, the mockery of my relatives, laughing, oh, ha, 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 look at you, and so on. I wish I could have known at that point Yogananda's statement that whatever is displeasing to the ego is pleasing to the soul. All I got was the displeasing to the ego part. That's the only part I understood at that point. And so these kinds of tests are good. They give us strength, but they're not that much fun, especially when you're going through them all alone. In fact, all of the energy spent just in maintaining one's own aura is, in fact, one of the reasons why Swamiji said it's so much better to live in community, or at the very least be connected to a spiritual community if you're not living there, because then you don't have to spend all of that energy maintaining your aura, protecting it, and being strong in your own perception of the truth, despite either people's attacks on it or people's indifference. As one person said to Swamiji when Swamiji tried very sincerely and clearly to interest him out of a sense of friendship in the spiritual path, the man said, it may all be true, but I'm just not interested. And this is what we face. I faced that too once I got onto the path and in college, and I thought, oh my gosh, my friends and I were staying up late into the nights discussing philosophy and the meaning of life. This is sort of age appropriate during the college years. Swamiji calls these the Intellect years and the 4 stages of development outlined in the Education for Life book. And So when I came upon Autobiography of a Yogi and realized, oh my gosh, this is the answer. And Kriya Yoga, whatever that is, but 30 seconds of Kriya gives you 1 year of spiritual growth. Oh my God, who would have ever come up with that on their own, just talking into the late hours of the night? This is something big. As soon as I tried to interest my friends, it was Adhavendam, Adhavendam, Adhavendam. Everywhere I turned, nobody wanted that. Okay, we've gone too far. It's a little bit like Swamiji said when he was 15, he was so passionate about starting communities, and he interested all of his friends. They said, yeah, this is wonderful, until they found out he was serious, and then they all left. And so in the same way, one could say that when we get onto the the spiritual path seriously and say, now I'm committing myself, I really want to be in this thing, that why don't you come do it too? Most people tend to back away. Their interest is more of a passing nature. Again, I'm not speaking critically. I'm not saying that they're lesser. People have to do what they think is right. However, for the devotee, this 1 horsepower energy can be a bit tiring. And so, as Swamiji was saying, in community, we don't have to maintain this force field. Outside of community, we really do. He said, you have to put up that energy to maintain your aura. It takes a lot of energy, and it's a shame. He said, it's a shame that we have to direct of the energy we have, so much of it, just to treading water, just to maintaining our status quo. And so our own status quo, it's certainly not the status quo of the world. And so when we first get onto the path, there can be a relief in learning some of these laws that are divine laws that we may have sensed inwardly, but never had any verification of outwardly. Now, this may be true more in the West, more in America than in India. I don't know. I tend not to think so. But certainly growing up in a materialistic country, Master said America's misery-making karma is the thought that things can give you happiness. America is not the only one that thinks that, but America has this as its particular curse. He said every country has its own misery-making karma. And so in India, certainly there is a lot of endorsement of spiritual laws and spiritual living. It doesn't mean that everyone personally endorses it or that they endorse you for trying to live that way. As my cousin from Kerala, nothing against Kerala, but just to point out that he's Indian, my cousin said to me, look, the Bhagavad Gita is great and all, but that's not how you live your life. And I was surprised because to me that it seemed so clearly what the Gita was, that it was Krishna directly saying, this is how you should live. Think about the passage from the Gita that we just heard. How beautiful. Cling to me. Leave those rights and writ duties. Adore me. Thou art sweet to me. It's pretty clear. It's pretty direct. It's not having, when Krishna says this, it's actually a metaphor for the abstraction of the cognitive. Forget it. No, he means what he says. I'm sure there are deeper meanings even than that. But still, on the surface, just at a first reading, it makes sense. And he is saying, live this way. He's saying this is the right way to live, and we decide, okay, I want to live the right way. He says, live this way. Do this. And you will come to me, I promise. Oh, how thrilling. So when we get onto the spiritual path, we can learn of these certain divine laws that, again, we always suspected were true or felt were true, but ours seemed to be the only voice crying out in favor of these laws, or not crying out, because we learned after enough times of being told to shush, just to keep to ourselves. There's a song of Swamiji's, several songs that I found very helpful in this way. One of these songs is from the Oratorio, and which is the story of Christ's life. And it's describing how this materialism, that's the main thing. Everyone was saying to me, materialism first. And I was saying, it's not enough. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's useless, but it's not enough. I have enough physical comforts, material comforts, and I'm not I'm not that happy. A friend of mine was telling me, especially when I was planning to leave my career path and join the spiritual path full time. I became a school teacher. It wasn't that I entered a monastery. But and even those who enter monasteries do a lot of work. So it isn't a question of not working, but not working for self. And so a friend of mine said, you really need to consider, he was an adult and looked at me as a child, that you need to earn enough money so that when you have your vacation, you may find that skiing in the local area is just not enough. It's not thrilling enough, and you'll want to go to the Swiss Alps, to Europe. That's where the real skiing is. Oh, it's wonderful. And so you'll want to earn enough money so you can do that. I mean, you can imagine how foreign it sounded to me who didn't ski. Since I have since skied, and it's actually quite fun. And it sounds even more foreign in Chennai. But I said, I don't want to earn enough money just so that I can be happy on my vacation. I want to be happy doing what I'm doing all the time. In other words, I don't want to be miserable in my job just so for my vacation I can be happy. And who's to say I'll even be happy? Because if I've been in the habit of being miserable every day, who's to say I won't just be miserable in the Alps? So he didn't agree and just thought I must not have understood. So there is a song of Swamiji's, the wonders that man did carve out of stone and wove out of music, then called them his own, did last a brief hour, as in Greece and in Rome. It was grace at last that did free us, when our souls sought love alone. And I just was thrilled by that, not only for the final part of the message, but the did last a brief hour. It resonated with me. Oh, finally, someone has told the truth. All of these things are passing. It's not just that they pass away, it's that the joy we get from them passes away. Swamiji gave the example of how when we get a new possession, for example, a new phone, we get a brand new phone, the latest model of whatever it is, and we just love it, and we open it, take it out of the box, and you can almost see sort of the divine glow coming out of the box and the angels singing, oh, as we lift the lid and the phone comes out, and then wow, and we power it up and it does all these fun things and we play with it and do whatever and we just love it. And then after a time, it's sort of our phone, because after all you do is talk to the same old people and send the same old text messages and get the same old, transactional alerts from Amazon or whatever it is. It's nothing different, just looks prettier, but it's the same stuff. So then we show the phone to our friends. Hey, come and see my new phone, because it's not as thrilling for us. But when we show it to them, they, oh, wow, look at the phone. And so we get kind of a thrill by showing it off to others. And then even that, we run out of friends to show it to, or they have the same phone or whatever. And then pretty much we forget it. Then we have to look for a new thing, a car or something else to get that temporary thrill from. And so another song from that same collection of music, the words are, let's see. Oh gosh, I can only remember the middle of the song. I'm trying to think of how it begins. I think that's it. To souls that were fallen, he spoke of God's love. In this case, it's referring to Jesus. He spoke to souls that were fallen. He spoke of God's love and coaxed them with kindness to turn back again. Forsake, he said, the fulfillments of earth, for the comfort they bring you lasts hardly an hour. And again, it just filled my heart not only with peace, but with strength that, yes, that's what I've been saying this whole time to myself, because I've had no one to say it to. I remember being in a group of young people. I was also a young person once at that time. And they said, if you could give up any emotion, what would it be? And at first I thought this was some weird, kind of game that you play. And so if you could be an animal, what would you be? And things like that. But this was if you could give up any emotion, what would it be? And I think I said, I might have said anger. I don't know. And then I realized, no, desire. I would like to give up desire. And of course, I said it without explanation, challenging them, daring them to respond, which of course they did in the obvious way, saying, desire? What? Why? Desire is what makes life worth living. It's what feeds life. It gives life joy. Without desire, what would be the point? And I just rather snobbishly did not explain myself. And so it was not a very dignified way or polite way to behave. And you see that the highest truth is that we find in time that desires pinch our hearts. They pinch our happiness. And we therefore find them troublesome. And we find through our own experience, the masters tell us, and if we have the faith or the belief rather, to try it out, then we experience, oh my gosh, when I give up desires, or as I give them up, I find myself so much happier. I find my joy so much more lasting than any joy I got from the temporary fulfillment of a desire. That joy was temporary. Because, as Master said, desires ever fed, never dead. As soon as we feed one desire, then another one comes. And it's that way too in feeding a habit. Another time he said, desires ever fed, never satisfied. And so we just can't win that way. Swamiji once was questioned in a public program that, Swamiji, you are telling us, this was in Los Angeles, you are telling us to give up desires, but other teachers are telling us that we need to learn how to manifest, how we need to learn how to fulfill our desires through vision and through putting out energy to get what we want. And so what do you have to say to that? And Swamiji said, well, you can do it that way, but it will take forever. It just takes forever because always there will be one more desire, one more thing. And, and for the yogi, I heard that and went, I don't want it to take forever. I've had enough of forever. It's taking forever already. I know there's more happiness around the corner, and I want it now, and I want it forever. Now, having said this, my friends, when I said to them, I would like to give up desire, and as I said, was rather snooty about it, I wasn't wrong in what I said. I was wrong in the way I said it. I was wrong perhaps to say it, because it wasn't something that they could hear, and who knows, maybe later they might have read in some book, Give Up Desire, and they say, oh yeah, that's what that idiot was saying the other night. Yeah, I know that's wrong. So it was not correct of me to say something intentionally trying to challenge them. It was not coaxing with kindness, as the song said. He coaxed them with kindness to turn back again. It was not coaxing, it was not kind. Now, from their point of view, they were not necessarily wrong in what they said, even though it was opposed to what I had said, because basically, if you think about it in terms of the three gunas, tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic, when you give up all desires, it is the quality of a sattvic person. In fact, you have to go beyond sattva guna to become divine. Sattva is still maya. It's nice maya. It's close to godly maya, but it's still maya. But as far as maya goes, it's the best maya you can have. So sattva guna is not motivated by desire. Rajoguna, the rajasic state of mind. I was going to say rajasic people. But remember, we have all these different gunas in us. And so, though we may be sattvic in some areas of our life, we may be rajasic in other areas. Maybe when it comes to food or something else, we really, enjoy our meals and so on, and it's not as sattvic, our diet perhaps. I'm not pointing any fingers, least of all at myself, or perhaps first, if I were to, at myself. I'm just saying that some compartments of our lives are not universally sattvic, and other areas of our life may even be tamasic. We just don't put a lot of energy in that direction. And so we should look for these things in ourselves rather than looking for them in others, and even helpfully pointing them out in others. That's just try it. You may lose a finger in the process. So the sattvic person is not motivated by desire, and actually the tamasic person is not motivated by desire either. The rajasic person is. I want this, so I will get it. The tamasic person, or the tamasic personality, is only motivated by pain. Or not even the promise of pleasure, maybe, but usually no, that's more rajasic. It's the threat of pain. For example, just speaking abstractly, to pick a random example, suppose we need to exercise more. This has nothing to do with me and my own personal life at all. Suppose we have to exercise more. And yeah, I know I should, but I'm busy with other things. Or, I don't mean the energization exercises. I mean aerobic exercise or other things. And we know we should and so on. But then maybe we have a health crisis. Or maybe we have some kind of a problem that basically we realize, or we're told, it's now or never. You better do this because of cholesterol or blood pressure or whatever. And suddenly, with the threat of doom, it's, okay, I'll do it. That's the way to get the tamasic person going, is only through the threat of danger. Same thing with diet, for example. Maybe I should eat a little bit better, but I'm not going to. And then, when you do this, you have acid, reflux, or you do this and in my case, I discovered I was allergic to wheat. And it's a strange kind of allergy because when I eat it, I only get sick from it 2 days later. So it's not as if you put it in your mouth, and that would be easy. When something's too hot, you learn not to put it in your mouth right away. Instant karma. Or even if it happened within a few hours, you could say, if I know that if I eat all of this sugar that later I'm going to crash because it always happens, so therefore I won't. This was 2 days later, and a cousin of mine challenged me, if it is 2 days later, because she didn't believe there was a such thing as a wheat allergy, then how do you know? How can you trace it back to the wheat? And I said, well, I have repeated the experiment 1,000 times because I didn't want to have to give up wheat. So is it really this? Is it really this roti? It can't be. And then 2 days later. So I became sure that there was a cause-effect relationship. I saw the correlation. So, again, to come back, as Master would say, the tamasic person is not motivated by desire. The sattvic person is not motivated by desire. The rajasic person is motivated by desire. So, when a rajasic person is confronted by somebody not motivated by desire, they rightly think, hey, that's low energy. That's lower energy than my level of rajasic energy. They may even say, I remember when I used to be like that. I was lazy. A rajasic person seeing, for example, stillness, or in this case, lack of desire, sees only tamasic level of energy. You see? Because that's what they've come from. We can only see as far as we have grown and before. We can't see above. If we saw above, we would be there. We can aspire to be above. We can believe that it's there, but we can't see it until we've experienced it. So it's perfectly right for a rajasic person, from their point of view, to say, not acting according to desire is lower energy and is wrong, because it represents a step backwards. From rajasic to tamasic. In this case, in every case, it may not be. It may actually be somebody who's sattvic, but 9 times out of 10, it's probably tamasic. But again, from the rajasic point of view, it's valid to say, you should work hard and earn lots of money, because the alternative to that is just sitting around. And you could sit around in ecstasy in God, but that's not occurring to them. And even if they were, they would say, well, what is that? That's just sitting around doing nothing. Navel gazing, as the sometimes the joke is made sometimes. Actually, to gaze at the navel is a very valid technique. It's one of the techniques even that Lahiri Mahashai taught in a way, and it's quite powerful. But when people make a mockery of it because they don't understand it, they just say you're just sitting around doing nothing. Because from a Rajasic person's point of view, that is tamasic. They've only seen somebody sitting still when they're being tamasic, or they only have sat still themselves when they have been tamasic. So, again, we have to be patient with that point of view, because in its own right, it's in its own context, it's actually true, it's correct. Again, the law is perfected in love. From the point of view of the Rajasic person, they are following the law by being Rajasic and not wanting stillness, not wanting to let go of all these material things, because again, it would be a step backwards. It takes time until they realize the satisfaction that I'm getting, until we realize, let me put it that way, this satisfaction I'm getting is not enough, and I know there must be more. Where can I find it? And then we learn the teaching, go within. And as we start to go within, not read about going within or hear about it, but as we actually go within, we start to feel, wow, this is much more thrilling and much more lasting. And so many of my worries and even health problems have gone away through this meditation. So, again, the law is true on its own level of Rajoguna, and the law being perfected in love means that we should, suppose we're even being challenged by such a person with such a viewpoint, we should have the large-heartedness to see their point of view. We should have the patience and the love. I remember sometimes when I was frustrated with somebody, and I was working in Ananda, and I was frustrated with somebody because I still have an ego, and my ego was clashing with their ego. And I spoke to Nayaswami Haridas about it, and wanted to basically not only get him on my side, but have him sign off on my weapons request. That, okay, it's fine, right? This I am justified in going to war. And when I came to him with some of these things, he would give different answers, but one of the common answers was always, Ananda has a large heart. Ananda has a big heart. That's what it was. Ananda has a big heart. And I kind of took the wind out of my sails, because yes, Ananda may have had a big heart, but my own heart was not that impressive in that moment. And so I told this to a friend of mine, and he said, well, Haridas Ji has a big heart, so he can say that. And it was true. I felt his large-heartedness, his bigness of heart, and it helped me to just, do I really want to be small-hearted, which is to say petty? Do I want to nitpick over this thing, even if it's related to my own life? This person is insulting me and criticizing me publicly, even still. What's the big deal? Those who know me know that it's not true, and maybe there is an element of truth that I should look at in myself. And besides, if anyone goes off loudly enough against someone, then good-natured people are going to wonder, why are you so quick to criticize somebody else? And so, anyway, I leave it to God. As Swamiji said, I won't defend myself. And I don't know if I'm at the level of that teaching. Certainly I'm not at the level that he was. I don't know if I'm at any level in that teaching, but I understood from when he said it, many times, the principle of that. There's nothing to defend. As Master said, praise cannot make me better, nor blame make me less. I am what I am before my conscience and God. So, for example, it may be frustrating later on in the path. I talked about the beginning of the path, but now later on in the path, when we're essentially always surrounded by devotees and people who do know the spiritual rules and are following them together. And it's such a relief now that there is a time in our day or in our week when we get to spend time with like-minded beings, like-minded souls, as Master would say, so that we can just let our hair down to a certain extent and just, just thrill in each other's company, where we are all committed to truth, seeking truth, realizing the truth, realizing God, meditating, practicing Kriya, all of these things. Then we can find, well, what happens when somebody goes against or appears to go against the spiritual laws or the cultural laws? For example, the law is perfected in love and kindness, Swamiji speaks of. Well, what if someone is unkind? And we have come to the spiritual path for kindness, and thank God everything outside of the spiritual path is unkind and we can leave it out there. But here we can all be safe in constant kindness, perfection, unbroken, correct behavior at all times. You see, we are works in progress. We have entered the cooker, but we are not all cooked yet. And so if we have karma that we have to work out, or attitudes that have to be worked out in relationship to another person, getting our feelings hurt, for example, or learning to not be so brash in our speech. If it has to be worked out with other people, God will use whatever other people are around us. And we can't hide in the ashram or just be surrounded by devotees. And therefore I don't have to learn these lessons. God will work through even innocent people in order to provoke us, or in order to push us, in order to test us, to help us to grow, to outgrow, to heal these tendencies of ours. And so when for example, someone might be following the rules very strictly, and we may find that frustrating, and even be upset about it, and even bring a friend in and say, can you believe how this person is being, and they're being so strict, and I would think that on the spiritual path people should know better, and I came, on and on. Well, on the one hand, it can seem like we are following the law, and that person who is being so critical or strict or whatever is breaking the law. And probably that's true. That's always the tragedy, is that if we are fired up, if we are unhappy, if we are critical, and we are right, it's even sadder when we're actually correct. Because the fact is, still, remember, one rule of yoga is do what works, and another one is what is it doing for you? This attitude that we're holding of self-righteous, frustration or denouncing, what is it doing for us? You see, Swamiji said this to someone, in fact. There's a story, he didn't say it to the person directly, he didn't have the opportunity, but there's a story he often told, that when he was in the hospital in Delhi, quite sick with double pneumonia, I sometimes wondered if Swamiji was going to have triple pneumonia. So I'm sorry, it's kind of a morbid joke. Double pneumonia means you have liquid and fluid in both lungs. And so it just seemed Swamiji, he had pneumonia so many times that we were always praying and worried, and it was over the top. In fact, in a situation like that, I wrote to him trying to be positive and totally foolish. When I said to him, Swamiji, I'm sorry to hear you're not well. You haven't been feeling well. And I thought, after all, the body is not reality, and I don't want to be worried. I don't want him to feel that I'm sort of sinking into negativity. And so I said, I'm sorry to hear you haven't been feeling well. And then I went on. And he wrote back, Dear Dharmaraj, I wonder if you'd heard, I have double pneumonia, which is considerably more than not feeling well. And I realized once again of how you can be completely inappropriate in your speech. Swamiji was not inappropriate. Master was not inappropriate. They are the ones, they set the bar we all struggle and strive to achieve. So when Swamiji was in the hospital with double pneumonia, a doctor came into his room and said, Sir, can you help me? Which was, of course, very strange. Normally, doctors say, can I help you? And Swamiji said, well, he was very sick, and he had some procedure anyway. He had pneumonia. He said, well, I'll try. And the man said, I have a son in college in Canada. I have many heavy responsibilities financially. I believe in Dharma, but how can I actually succeed and meet all of these financial obligations without cutting corners sometimes here and there. And Swamiji said, I have found in my life that by following Dharma, I have been more successful than otherwise. And the man just sort of shook his head, because as Swamiji said, at that moment I wasn't really an advertisement for success, just lying there so ill. And he wondered if the doctor just, couldn't believe it. That interaction was the inspiration for Swamiji to write a course of 26 lessons called Material Success Through Yoga Principles, demonstrating how, by following Dharma, by following yoga principles, that he had been able to build Ananda, and how these tools could be, these principles could be applied in anyone's life. It wasn't saying, now that you've learned yoga, use it to earn money, which unfortunately some people interpreted from that title. Someone even said that to me, sort of had the nerve to say it to my face. But you can understand, sometimes people do actually do that. And if that's all you've ever seen, again, maybe that would be your reaction. You might want to investigate before condemning. As Swamiji said, that kind of judgment which is quick to condemn and slow to investigate. And so that's what happened. But still, I could understand where that person was coming from. Anyway, Swamiji wrote this course. But still, what was his answer to that doctor? It comes actually in lesson 5 of that course. The answer he didn't have the opportunity to give the man, although we actually gave the man this particular booklet saying, you inspired Swamiji to write this course, and here's lesson 5 for you, where he tells the story about you, and in case you're interested. And as far as I know, I dropped it off at the hospital for that doctor, but as far as I know, he never followed up. Swamiji said, okay, suppose you are cutting corners and you're able to earn money and meet all of these responsibilities and going against Dharma, which you say you value. What is it doing for you? What is this behavior doing for you? He said, it was clear to me, seeing the doctor's face, the worry lines that were cut into his forehead, how I think the man even smoked cigarettes or something like that. I'm not sure if that was Swamiji wrote that. But it was so obvious how troubled the man was, not just by the financial responsibilities, but by that feeling that the only way he could win was by cheating. And of course, that eats away at your peace. And then feeling trapped, because if I don't cheat, then I'll fail. And that's what Maya says. That's all. Whenever you hear that voice in your head, you know it's Maya. That's the one talking. And so it takes courage. I understand. I have had to face challenges and had to have courage, or had that same struggle myself. So I'm not speaking in a vacuum. I know what I'm talking about. I know it can be hard. But still, what's past is in the past, as Master said. That's not something we're interested in. What is now is what lies before us, to live with joy. So, come back, if we are so self-righteous that someone else is misbehaving, but it makes us in turn critical. I can't believe how critical they are. Oops. You see? Well, aren't we being critical too? Or, you would think that at this, if we look in the mirror, how many times have I begun a sentence with, you would think that, and I know that as soon as I've said that, I'm wrong. Even if I'm right, I'm wrong, because my attitude is wrong. We should trust that, as we read in the affirmation, everything comes from God. God may just be testing us just to see if we'll break in the right way. God may be ready to laugh with us, or sort of, say, well, we're going to need to do that one again because you didn't quite see the joke. And you took it all seriously and got all upset. I'm sure Divine Mother is saying that to me all the time. And so, at a certain point, our self-righteousness, again, we have to ask, what is it doing for me? Or if we're in conversation with somebody about such a thing, and maybe we're not the one who's fired up, but we're in the conversation all the time. Yeah, you're right. As Swamiji said, some people came to him in the early days when he was with Master and said, Master's wonderful. And he said, oh, because of course it's thrilling to speak to anyone who wants to talk about how wonderful Master is. Master was alive at that time, Yoganandaji. And then they would say, and as wonderful as he is, why is he like this? And Swamiji said there are always people in every ashram who are like this and try to basically bring the energy down and stir up a little bit of a rebellion that they feel in themselves. And so Swamiji did not respond the way they wanted. They wanted him to say, yeah, why is he like that? And why is he like this way? And they wanted him to say, I don't know why he's like that. Why is he that way? And get all fired up. Instead, Swamiji said, well, I think he's this way because of this and so on, and just gave them a very clear and logical explanation. And so they tried one or two more times, and he gave them as much as he could perceive of why Master might do this or that or the other. And he said they quickly lost interest and left him alone. He said, there are always such people, even on the spiritual path. Stay away from them. They're poison. Just stay away. And so if we find that, not people, but we find that voice in ourselves coming up, yeah, what about that? Again, just look in the mirror. See if this is medicine or is it poison. There is a fine line, yes, because as Swamiji himself said, well, I don't want to lose my discrimination. I still want to be able to tell right from wrong and truth from error and so on. But we don't have to be upset about it, you see. And if we are upset, then we have to look to our own reaction. It's not wrong to be upset, but to say, why am I upset? Why does this upset me? I could imagine, for example, Yoganandaji in this situation not being upset. There is an example. There was a man who had been teaching along with Yoganandaji in the early years. Yoganandaji had asked him, can you come? Because he wanted to spread this message, but he had no experienced teachers and speakers. So he invited some well-known speakers and spiritual teachers in their own right to also share these teachings. And so this man had gone and actually taken some of these teaching and claimed that they were his own and was spreading them. And there was one public lecture he gave where he said, is there anyone from any member of Self-Realization Fellowship in the audience? And so a number of people stood up. And then they're expecting perhaps that the man would praise Yogananda, from whom he had learned so many things. And instead he just criticized the organization, the teachings, Yoganandaji, everything. And these people were furious, and they came back to see Master, and they said to him, can you believe what he said, and how dare he in this? And Master said, I will speak to him. I will phone him. And they said, okay, good. Master is going to take care of it. And Master phoned the man and said, I just want to thank you for all that you're doing to spread God's work, to spread the teachings of India. That's it. You see, he wasn't threatened. He wasn't offended. It didn't matter. As he said in another case, it is unreality. Why should it bother me? And the man was spreading those teachings. Master was, again, just amazing to show us the perfect response to every situation. You read in his autobiography of a yogi. So impressive how he was able to handle so many different things. We need examples like that. So we set our sights high. And so we choose to live in a godly way because we know somebody who did. It's proven to us that it's possible. How? One way is some of the things I've been talking about. Another way is just meditate. Just spend time with like-minded people, positive environments, satsang. Another is just chant, just give your love to God. Just do all of the techniques that we've been given, hold the right attitudes, and all the rest of this will follow automatically, more and more until we're free in God. God bless you.